Hey, welcome back to Working Class Customs, and welcome back once again to Stable B. Today we are going to talk about track prepping your motorcycle. If you're on our channel watching videos, we talk about going to the track a lot, and what we haven't done yet is talking about making your bike ready for the track, specifically just your motorcycle. We've got some other videos out there. We've got like what I wish I knew, my first track day. We've got the converting your track bike from a street bike to a track bike. That'll be up here also. This is obviously a track bike. Over here I've got a street bike, so we'll be working with both today. Go check out that video, it's really interesting. And then also, as always, JK Moto Podcast, episode 2, get off your couch and go to the racetrack, because we believe here that if you own a motorcycle, specifically a sport bike, but really any motorcycle, and you're not going to a racetrack, you are missing out on some of the best times of your life, and you should get to the racetrack and do it. So without further ado, let's get this bike moved up here and show you guys what it takes to get it ready to go to the racetrack. So this rear stand is from Venom Motorcycle Accessories. You can find them on Amazon. I'll have a link down in the description to it. They're pretty cheap. We like them a lot. Well, I don't know about a lot. That's a little interesting word to say, but they work well. They're simple. Available on Amazon for a really cheap price. I think we'll probably do a review on them later on, because we've got the normal rear, a normal front, and then we added the steering stem lift accessory onto the front here that we have, and I had some interesting experiences with that. So be on the lookout for a Venom Motorcycle Accessories review later on, and we'll go through that. But in the meantime, like I said, link down in the description. Go check them out if you're looking for front rear stands. They're a pretty good option at a very affordable price. One of the few things we're really gonna do, besides just kind of go over everything, is taping up our headlights. We have the mirrors removed on this motorcycle because we've taken it to the track before. You don't have to remove your mirrors, but if you don't remove your mirrors, then you're gonna tape them up. Personally, at Working Class Customs, we really like the handlebar mirrors. Well, a stock mirror is way easier to see out of, but they don't look as cool. You take a mirror off a bike and like it just changes the look so quick. And we do handlebar mounted mirrors pretty much all the time, bar ends as they're called, which also makes it very easy when you go to the track, because you just take the one bar end off. You've already got the block off plates where your mirrors were. You're good to go there. That would be step one. If you got mirrors, either remove them or you can tape them up. And then headlights, tail lights, those also need taped up. The reason that they need taped up isn't because they put out light. It's because if you wreck the motorcycle, they are likely to shatter on the track and cause issues. So we've got tape there so that if you go down, that tape will hold all the pieces together. I've talked to a few different track day organizations about this. Some say yes, some say no. There's a lot of different thought about it, but when you see brake lights in front of you, you have that natural instinct of, I've got to stop. And so on the racetrack, you shouldn't be looking for brake lights. You should be going based off what everyone else is doing and what you're comfortable doing. And instead of just, I see brake lights, I need to slow down, it might be, this guy's slowing down, but I don't need to slow down yet. I can make my pass here and go through my turns. So we tape up our lights, that way we're not distracting anyone. There's no question about what's going on. Besides, it's just a motorcycle on the racetrack doing what motorcycles do. Next up, after we get the lights taped up, you wanna go through and check your motorcycle. And that, I mean, realistically, you should do that every time you're riding, right? But when you go to the racetrack, you're gonna be riding that motorcycle at its peak performance or somewhere near there. If it's your first time, maybe not. If you're crazy, maybe. Who knows? But either way, you're expecting this motorcycle to perform to its maximum or as close as you can get to that. So you wanna make sure that everything is operating properly. Checking all your fluids, right? Make sure you have plenty of coolant, but not too much coolant. Plenty of brake fluid, but not too much brake fluid. And plenty of oil, but not too much oil. Quick story time, if you will. When I took this, my track bike here in, I was actually doing the suspension. My brake fluid was like all the way up to the top of the upper. And the guy was talking to me, he's like, yo, you need to empty out that brake fluid. And I was very confused, but if you're on the racetrack, you're using your brakes a lot more than you would on the street. If your brake fluid is all the way at the top, as you use it, it's gonna heat up. And as it heats up, it's gonna expand, and you could pop it out the top, blow your cap, or blow a line somewhere, or something else, and now you don't have any brakes. And when you're coming down the front straight at 160 plus miles an hour, you kind of need the brakes. If your brake fluid's sitting near the top and you have a way to get it out, try and go ahead and lower that. You want it about halfway between lower and top, and people go even lower, and that's brake fluid. Same thing kind of goes for oil. You're gonna be revving your bike up to or very near red line quite a bit, very often. So you want to make sure your oil sight glass is half to lower, because it'll actually expand a little more as it gets hot and you're running hot all day. And as you're leaning over more, the oil can go out the top of the engine a little bit, and that's not good. So make sure your oil's not low. You still need plenty of oil, but make sure it's lower in the sight glass. Some of the other things we need to check are gonna be our tires, our brakes, and our chain. We had a video about chains and sprockets that we did a couple weeks ago or something. Go ahead and go check that out. Link will be up here. I just put slicks on this guy because, well, you run slicks once and it turns out that you start to kind of like them and get used to them and you want to keep running them. But you don't need slicks to go to the racetrack, I promise. In fact, slicks is like kind of a whole separate ball game. You have to start buying stands, you have to buy tire warmers, you have to buy all of those things that go into slicks, and it becomes a little bit more of a hassle, and it's a lot easier and a lot more relaxing if you just go and all you have to do is hop on the bike, do a couple warm-up laps, and then you're good to go, rather than always dealing with the whole mess of racing slicks and whatever else. If it's your first track day, even if you're buying a track bike, I think I'd recommend going to just a good DOT race tire or something super sticky. If you're on your street bike, take a look at your tires. If they're a sport touring tire or something built for longevity, you're still okay to go run a track day on those. Just realize that they're not gonna be as sticky as something that's built to wear down super quick. Keep that in mind. Always have good respect for your tires so you don't get in a precarious scenario there. But when you're looking at your tires, besides looking at what type of tire it is so you know what you're kind of getting yourself into, make sure you kind of look at your tire profile, right? So over the life of a tire, it's gonna wear down. Depending on how you ride and where you're riding the majority of the time could dictate how it wears down. This tire here has seen only track use, so you can see that it's still nice and round. Look at that, nice and round the whole way down. So like I said, we'll go take a look at one that's got a flat spot. A flat spot doesn't need to turn you away necessarily. What's important is finding your wear bars. So every tire is gonna have a wear bar in its tread. And if you're at the wear bar, hey bud, you need new tires. You should go get some new tires, especially before you go to the racetrack. But if you're not near the wear bar and you've got a really good tire profile still, or a little bit of flatness is okay. I don't wanna say that if you have any flat spot on your tires, you have to go get new ones. I've gone to the track with a flat spot. It really depends on how you are, but I wouldn't be too worried about it. In fact, you might actually get some better life out of your tires because you'll use the edge more at the track, kind of round it back out a little. Having that flat spot, well, the negative of that is it's gonna make it a little harder to lean your bike over. And I say a little because it is kind of hard to notice, but if you have been riding motorcycles for a while, if you ever go get new tires, you'll notice that your bike wants to like dip into turns a lot quicker and a lot easier. The same is definitely true on the racetrack. And if you still have that round tire profile, it's gonna make it that much easier to control your motorcycle. So, you know, it's kind of where you make that judgment call on, do I wanna just get a nice fresh sticky set? Do I think I'm gonna keep doing track days, or let me go just try this out? I'll use the tires that I already have. If I like it, then we can talk about it later. That's up to you there. After tires give you grip so you can go, but they also give you grip so you can stop. So with stopping, you need the other portion of that, which is your brakes. So we talked about brake fluid a little bit, that's very good. While you're checking your bike over, like I said, you should spend probably a good hour or so out looking around your bike and taping up the lights and whatnot. Hour might be kind of pushing it. Take a good look at it. You can come in and look at your brake pads. There is a minimum on there if you've got calipers and whatever else, and you wanna look at the minimum thickness of your brake pads, but take a look at them, make sure that they're good. If you're changing tires, always remember to pump up your brakes before you go out on the racetrack, because otherwise you'll end up out there going into your first corner with no brake pressure. So pump those back up. And then while you're up here looking at your brakes, take a look at your forks. So if your forks have fluid on them, that means you need new fork seals, most likely. There's only two fluids up here at the front of the motorcycle, we hope. It's either brake fluid or fork fluid. If it's all over your forks, it's most likely your fork fluid, which means that your fork seal's gone bad. If you have a bad fork seal, go ahead and get that replaced. I will say that there's probably mechanics at the track that can do that for you. So if you're worried about it, just go take it over to them. They'll check it out for you. But you don't want fork seal or fork fluid all over your stuff while you're out there riding. So get your fork seals replaced if you have that leak. So moving to the back of the bike, you got brakes back here also. You still want to check those. Those still need to work. Out on the racetrack, you may or may not use your back brakes a whole lot, but if you go out into the grass, you need your back brakes. If you hit your front brakes in the grass, you're gonna put the bike down. But if you hit the grass and you're standing up, you can use your back brakes to slow you down until you come to a stop, and you can keep the bike upright a lot easier that way. So check your back brakes just as much as you do the front. They are still just as important. While you're back here also, gonna go ahead and check on your chain. You can see your sprockets here, so you can just kind of rotate that around, make sure you got a nice healthy sprocket. As you're doing that, while you're doing this, I would recommend just going ahead and doing a clean and lube if it's been a while. I mean, if you just did it yesterday, you go to the track tomorrow, then you don't need to do it again. But if it's been a minute, anyway, yeah, that's up to you how well you take care of your chain. But clean and lubricate your chain often. If you're going to the racetrack, might as well just do it beforehand, and that's going to give you a chance to look over everything. So check your chain, and then check your chain tension. Right here, the spec for chain tension on this motorcycle is 0.8 to 1.2 inches of slack. So that's from the bottom to the top, which that's actually good right there. When you get to the racetrack, you're gonna show up in the morning. You're gonna head over to registration, get everything registered, and then you're gonna take your bike to tech, right? So they're gonna do a tech inspection on your bike. They're not gonna go insane. They're just gonna make sure that there's no loose parts, right? Everything's on there nice and good. Your tires, they'll check your tires for you. They'll check your chain for you. They'll check your brake fluid. Like, they check all those things that I'm mentioning, so I'm trying to save you some time and some money, hopefully, so you don't show up and have to get new stuff in the morning and spend the first half of your day going through getting your bike ready. With your chain tension, I've been told, like, I come out here and I pull out a ruler and stuff and I set my chain tension, and I show up to the racetrack and I always get told that that chain's a little tight. When you're on a racetrack, you've got ups, downs, you're going into a turn, you can really compress and expand that rear shock back here, and that's gonna mess with your chain a lot. If your chain's on the tighter side of whatever your band is, which is usually 1 inch to 1.5 inches for most people, that's where people keep it. If it's on the tighter side of that, you might wanna look at going ahead and loosening it up a little bit. Chances are you get to tech and they tell you to loosen up more anyway. You want it nice and slacky. We'll go ahead and take a look at my track bike. That one's got a little bit more slack in it than this one. I don't know how well you can see it, but the track bike, it's a little more than 0.8 to 1.2 inches. It's nice and loose. Also keep in mind, if you have a relatively new chain, chains do stretch out over time, especially out on the racetrack where you're putting them through, you're gonna go full throttle a couple times, hopefully, when you're out there. That's the goal, right? We wanna get to that straight, rip it, grip it, and rip it, and head down to the end. So when you're doing that, your chain will kind of stretch out. So keep an eye on it throughout the day if it's relatively new, and make sure that it's not loosening up on you. But that amount of slack right there, it's not too much. It's on the kind of like a lot side, but that's actually the only time that I haven't been told, hey, that chain's a little tight. Just keep that in mind. Talking about tightening your chain throughout the day. On the episode of JK Moto, Get Off Your Couch and Go to the Track, we kind of talked about the different ways to go to the racetrack. I also kind of talked about that in my other video. If you're gonna ride to the racetrack, it's a little more difficult, but I definitely throw a set of tools in there, or have a buddy that you meet up with there, or something. Again, there are mechanics at the racetrack. Generally, there's someone there, tech guy, whatever you want to call them, that'll help you out. Everyone's generally pretty nice. People will be willing to help you out. If you can, bring your own tools, bring your own stuff. Everything you do to your bike today or whenever you're doing it before you go to the racetrack, whatever tools you use, go ahead and bring those with you if you can, because it's gonna help you out. If you have an issue, you can just go take care of it real quick and get back on the racetrack and keep it having fun. If you're looking under this motorcycle right here, there's something missing. No, it's not because I've been doing high-speed runs on the freeway and I don't want people to catch me. It's because I went to the racetrack. And when I go to the racetrack, personally, I always take my license plate off. The biggest reason I would say I've always done that is that when you lay a motorcycle down, things can go flying and easily come off, especially things that aren't super well attached in the first place. So specifically, your license plate is usually only held on by a couple bolts. In my opinion, it's easier to just take it off, leave it home. That way, no matter what condition you come back in, you still got your license plate and you can put that back on and keep street riding the bike. It's up to you. It's not required to take it off. I'd recommend it. Also, depending on where your license plate sits, I've seen some that sit pretty low here, which gives you that much clearance, which seems like a lot until you're out on a racetrack and you go down into a turn and then right back up because you got some crazy elevation changes. I've seen license plates that have dents in the bottom of them, specifically from hitting the rear tire because they sat a little too low. The other thing we need to talk about while we're back here is exhaust. Everyone loves a loud exhaust. These bikes both have the M4 GP on them, which is a great exhaust. It is nice and loud. Check your local racetrack for sound restrictions, noise restrictions. I can think of a couple right off the top of my head, California, Arizona, and a few other places that have noise restrictions on some of the racetracks. If you show up there and your bike's too loud and you have no way to change it, you don't get to ride that day. Or you do, but you have to be super careful about holding it back and whatever else. And it's just a pain. I know the M4 makes inserts. We've got an insert in this one. It's a stock one that came with it. That's what that ring is holding back, the clip right there. They make an even quieter insert. I think I've actually got that installed in this one right now. Yep, it's in there at the moment. You have options. Take a look at what the option is for your bike. We love loud exhaust, right? Loud pipes save lives, hashtag whatever till you die. We got it all. But when you go to the racetrack, check your local racetrack when you're signing up for a track day. They should have it very clear, like, hey, we have an 85 decibel limit, or we have a 95 decibel limit, or hey, yay, no decibel limit today, we get the buy off, whatever it might be. Check on that. If you're worried about it, your bike's probably too loud. You don't need to go buy a sound meter. Just look into a way to get your bike a little quieter if you need to. We're to the great part of the video where we get to tape our headlights up. Awesome. You can use, okay, don't use packing tape. Some people use duct tape. I've always used black duct tape. A lot of people will tell you you shouldn't use black duct tape or duct tape at all because it's too sticky. You'll get residue stuck on your bike, this, that, whatever else. I'm gonna show you a way that I've always done it to not get the residue. We've had black duct tape on here before and there's no tape residue on these lights. There's some scratches, but it's old and it's in the street. I've always used duct tape. A lot of people use painter's tape, blue, yellow, whatever color, masking tape. That works pretty well also. Again, the whole point of the tape is to keep the lights together if you go down and they crack. Also a little bit of prevent distractions. I like the black duct tape because then even if my lights are on, cannot see through it, so there's no distraction there. While you're taping, you don't have to go through and only cover the lights and make it look super nice if you don't want to. But if you want to, you can. You just take a razor blade and go around the edge of your lights here and cut that out. The way that I get away with using black duct tape every time and not having the tape residue is that I make sure my lights stay off while I'm doing that. Come in the seat here, pull up the fuse box and make sure the light's out for the fuse is out for the headlights, and that'll prevent those lights from being on, getting hot, making the tape hot, and leaving that residue on there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pull our seat off because that's where our fuse box is. If you don't know where it is on your bike, it's probably under the seat. Generally, your battery sits right here in your subframe, your fuse box sits right above the battery or near it, and the subframe is kind of where all the electrical goes because, well, the engine takes up the frame. We'll go ahead and pull these two bolts out and we'll take our seat off, and then we have our fuse box. Yeah, it's only 6 fuses. It's not the size of a car. If you're looking around for some giant fuse box, you're not gonna find it because it's a motorcycle, so they're nice and small. So go ahead and get that cap off of there. On the top of the fuse box, it has our stickers for us, so it tells us which fuse is what. Fan, you're gonna want your fan. Fuel, obviously you need a fuel pump. Signal, you would think you could get rid of the signal. I've made that mistake before. On the Gixxer specifically, if you take the signal fuse out, you do lose your turn signals. You also lose your entire dash. Kind of want your dash throughout the day, so the signal's gotta stay in there, so you still gotta tape up your turn signals if you have them. Ignition, well, we obviously need to be able to start the bike. And then we have headlight high and headlight low. So if you look in here, what do you know? Headlight high and headlight low aren't in there. Conveniently, they have these 3 spots out here for spare fuses, so I always just put my fuses right over my spare spot. That way I don't lose them. So when I get home and I want to go back, I can just put them right back in. If you don't have the opportunity to remove fuses for just headlights, or that throws a code on your bike because you get a newer bike, whatever it might be, probably just stick with the painter's tape. Painter's tape works fine. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying you have to use black duct tape. You can use whatever tape you want. Kind of. So when you're taping, the only important part is to make sure that you have the entire surface of the headlight or tail light or whatever light covered. I'm not gonna cut it out today. I'm just gonna leave the excess. If you wanna make a bike look a little nice or whatever, you can cut it out, that's fine. You just gotta make sure you got the whole thing covered. That way, like I said, if you go down, you shouldn't go down, but if you go down, it's okay, it happens. Lights might break, tape will hold everything together. You won't have random pieces of light glass or plastic on the racetrack causing problems for other people. So let's go ahead and get started. Just like that, got taped up headlights. It's kind of hard due to the roundness of the lights and whatnot to get it to look perfect. That's why we don't worry about it too much. You're the racetrack, you're there to have fun, go fast, not for a great looking taped headlight. When you're done with the front, you'd go on and do the back. We're not gonna show you that today. It's a lot less. While you're here, make sure you click a like on this video, throw some comments down below with any questions you might have about track days, get my bike ready for track day. We've got a lot of other videos on the channel, so go check them out. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Motorcycles and track days is what we do, right? We got JK Moto Podcast, and then we've got all these videos on specifically, for the most part, going to the racetrack. Pretty much done. We got our headlights taped up. We'll get our taillights taped up. A couple other things I can think of right off, like just off the top of my head while I'm sitting here. If you haven't checked your throttle in a minute, you wanna go ahead and check your throttle. Twist it, you let go. Twist it, you let go. they're gonna do that at your tech inspection. They should turn the handlebars all the way in both directions and do that test. If it doesn't work, you need to either loosen or tighten your throttle cables. So take a look at that before you go. Just a general, like, feel around, make sure none of your levers are super loose, nothing super loose gonna come off. Tires, tape your lights, check your chain, check your oil, brake fluid, forks, brake pads, all those things. Once again, you're going to the racetrack, you're expecting your bike to perform at its peak, and you want it to perform correctly at its peak. So you want to make sure that everything that you can take care of is taken care of correctly, so the bike doesn't have any excuses to not work. Also, when you sign up for your track day, they should have a list of, like, these are the things that we check at tech inspection. So you can just print off that list and run down that list and check everything on your own. If you have any questions, generally, for a track day, it's not nearly as crazy as like racing. If you're ever in question, you can show up, and before you ever go to tech inspection or while you're at tech inspection, bring up what your question is. Don't be trying to hide stuff just to go do the track day, because you don't want to end up causing someone else physical harm or ruin their bike or whatever it might be because you hid something from the tech inspection or put something off or said, no, that doesn't matter. It is serious while you're out there, take it seriously. And then the only other tip I can give you is to clean your bike. Clean your bike will look nicer. If they're doing tech inspection, you've got dirt and everything everywhere, they're gonna have to look a little deeper. They're gonna have to look harder to see through the dirt in the first place. But then two, if you didn't even clean the bike, how do they know that you did anything to it? Clean bike goes a long way for tech inspection, helps it go a lot smoother. So go check on your bike, look at all the things we talked about, print off that list from your track day organization, give the bike a good wash, and then go have fun on your first track day. Thanks for being here.